My name is Fernando, and I'm 76 years old. I built a company worth $200 million. I have a beach house that was featured in architecture magazines. I have a car that costs more than most people earn in 5 years. And I'm completely alone because while I was building all of that, I destroyed the only thing that truly mattered: my family, my marriage, and most of all, my relationship with my daughter. I'm going to tell you a story I haven't told anyone, not because it's a secret, but because I'm ashamed of it. I'm ashamed to admit that I spent 50 years chasing the wrong things, that I sacrificed love for success, that I traded my family for money and recognition, and that now, sitting in this huge, empty house, I finally understand how stupid I was. But let me start from the beginning. I was born in 1948 in Monterrey, Mexico. My father worked in a factory. My mother cleaned houses. We were poor. Not the romanticized kind of poverty you see in movies, real poverty. The kind that means going to bed hungry some nights. The kind that means wearing worn-out shoes because there's no money for new ones. When I was 12, my father lost his job. He was fired for no reason, no compensation, nothing. I saw how it destroyed him, how he shrank, how he stopped looking us in the eye, how he started drinking. And I swore to myself that I would never be like him, that I would never depend on anyone, that I would build something that no one could take away from me. That promise became my religion. I studied like crazy. I worked from the age of 14. I saved every peso I earned. When I was 21, in 1969, I went to Mexico City with 500 pesos in my pocket and a dream of building something big. I got a job at a manufacturing company. I started in the warehouse loading boxes. But I observed everything, how the business worked, where the inefficiencies were, what could be improved. I worked 14, 16 hours a day, weekends too. I had no friends. I had no time for friends. I only had my ambition. By 25, I was already a supervisor. By 28, a manager. The company owners noticed my dedication. They gave me more responsibilities, more projects, and I accepted everything. I always said yes. I was always available. Work was my identity. I met Patricia in 1975. I was 27. She was 24. She worked as a secretary at the same company. She was beautiful. She had a laugh that lit up the whole room. She asked me out 3 times before I finally accepted. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I was too busy working. Our first date was on a Wednesday night, the only night I had free. We went to dinner at a modest restaurant. We talked for hours. She told me about her family, her dreams of traveling, her love of literature. I told her about my plans to have my own business someday, about how I was going to be successful, about how I was going to prove to the world that I was worth something. I should have noticed the way his smile dipped slightly when I spoke of my ambitions. I should have seen the worry in his eyes, but he was too enamored with my own vision to see anything else. We got married 6 months later. It was a small wedding. We didn't have the money for anything big, but Patricia was happy. I remember how she looked at me that day, with so much love, so much hope, so much faith in us. I promised her I would make her happy, that we would build a good life together. I didn't keep that promise. The first few years were difficult. I was still working long hours. Patricia was alone in our small apartment. At first, she didn't complain. She would wait for me with dinner ready. She would ask about my day. She tried to create a home life, but I was always tired. I was always thinking about work. My mind was always elsewhere. In 1978, I decided it was time. I was going to start my own business. I quit my job. I used all our savings. I borrowed money from relatives. Patricia was scared. She told me maybe we should wait, that maybe we should have more savings first. But I was convinced. I told her to trust me, that this was going to work. The first 2 years were brutal. The company almost went bankrupt 3 times. I was working 20 hours a day. I slept at the office more nights than I slept at home. Patricia and I basically stopped seeing each other. We stopped talking. We became strangers who shared a last name. But the company survived, and then it began to grow. By 1982, we were making real profits. By 1985, we had 50 employees, and I was busier than ever. Our daughter, Valentina, was born in 1980. I was 32 years old. I was in a meeting when Patricia went into labor. My secretary interrupted to tell me the hospital had called. I said I would finish the meeting and then come. The meeting lasted 3 more hours. When I arrived at the hospital, Valentina had already been born. Patricia looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It wasn't anger, it was worse. It was disappointment, resignation. I held Valentina for the first time and felt something I'd never felt before. A love so intense it hurt. I looked at her and thought, I'm going to give her everything, the best life possible. She'll never go through what I went through. But I confused giving her things with giving her my time. I confused providing with being present. Valentina's early years are a blur for me. I know they happened. I know she grew up, but I wasn't there to see it. Patricia told me about her first words, her first steps, but for me, they were just second-hand stories. They weren't my memories. They were Patricia's memories. I remember when Valentina was 5 years old. It was a Saturday morning. I was in my home office reviewing some numbers. Valentina came in with a drawing she had made. It was of our family, Patricia, Valentina, and me. In the drawing, Patricia and Valentina were together, smiling. I was in the corner, standing apart, with a blank expression. She showed me the drawing with such pride. "Look, Daddy, it's us," I said. "Very nice, my love," without really looking at it, without seeing what she was telling me. She stood there for a moment, waiting for something more. Then she left in silence. I found the drawing years later, tucked away in a box of her childhood things. When I finally looked at it, I cried, because she had been showing me exactly how I saw myself. Detached, absent, not even smiling. In 1987, the company exploded. We landed a huge contract with an international corporation. Suddenly we had 200 employees. We were opening offices in other cities. The money started rolling in, lots of money. We bought a big house, a new car. We enrolled Valentina in the best private school. Patricia could buy whatever she wanted. I thought I was keeping my promise, that I was giving them the best life. But Valentina didn't want a big house. She wanted me to come to her soccer games. Patricia didn't want expensive jewelry. She wanted conversations. She wanted me to look at her the way I had on our first date. She wanted her husband back. In 1990, Valentina was 10 years old. She had a piano recital. She had been practicing for months. She made me promise I would be there. I said yes, of course I would be there. On the day of the recital, there was an emergency at the office. An important client was threatening to cancel a contract. I had to be there. I had to fix it. I told Patricia to go without me, that I would arrive as soon as possible. But the meeting dragged on and on. By the time I left the office, the recital was over. When I got home, Valentina was in her room. Patricia looked at me with tear-filled eyes. She said, "You promised her. You broke her heart." I went upstairs to talk to Valentina. I knocked on her door. She didn't answer. I went in anyway. She was lying on her bed. her back to me. I told her I was sorry, that I'd had an emergency, that I would make it up to her. She didn't turn around, she just said, "I don't care anymore, Dad. I'm used to you not being here." I was 10 years old. 10 years old, and I had already given up on myself. I should have taken it as a wake-up call. I should have changed something then and there, but I didn't. I told myself she'd understand when she was older, that one day she'd appreciate all the work I'd done to give her a good life. The company kept growing. In 1995, it was worth $50 million. In 2000, $100 million. I was featured in business magazines. I was invited to give lectures. It was the definition of success. And my family was falling apart. Patricia stopped waiting for me for dinner. She stopped asking about my day. She built a life completely separate from mine. She had her friends, her activities, her own interests. We lived in the same house but in different worlds. Valentina became distant. When she was 13 or 14, we hardly spoke. I tried sometimes. I'd ask her about school. She'd answer with monosyllables. "Fine. I don't know." And I didn't know how to break through that wall she'd built between us. A wall I'd put there myself, brick by brick, with every absence, every broken promise, every time I chose work over her. In 2003, when Valentina was 23, she graduated from university with honors. I was in Europe closing a deal. I told her I was sorry, that I couldn't cancel the trip, that it was too important. Patricia went to her graduation alone. Valentina received her diploma, surrounded by entire families, celebrating together. And her father was 5,000 kilometers away in a boardroom. When I returned, I went to see her. I brought her an expensive gift, a designer watch. She took it, thanked me politely, and set it aside. I asked her about the ceremony. She said it was fine. I told her I was proud of her. She nodded, and in her eyes, I saw the same thing I had seen when I was 10 years old. Resignation. She had stopped hoping I would change. She had stopped hoping I would be there. Patricia asked me for a divorce in 2005. After 30 years of marriage, she told me one night during dinner. Well, it wasn't really dinner together. I had arrived late, as usual. She was sitting at the table with her arms folded. She looked at me and said, "I want a divorce." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. She just said she was tired. Tired of being alone in a marriage. Tired of being invisible. Tired of living with a ghost who occasionally showed up to sleep in the same house. I tried to convince her to give me another chance. I promised her I would change, that I would work less, that we would spend more time together. She shook her head. She said, "Fernando, you've been promising that for 30 years. I don't believe you anymore. And honestly, I don't care anymore." She moved out 2 weeks later. The divorce proceedings were quick and civil. We didn't fight over money. She took what she needed and left. And I was left in that huge house, alone, wondering how I'd ever gotten to that point. But do you know what I did after the divorce? I threw myself even deeper into my work, because it was the only thing I knew how to do. The only thing I was good at. The company kept growing. In 2010, it was worth $150 million. In 2015, $200 million. And I was more alone than ever. Valentina got married in 2009. She invited me to the wedding. I went. I walked her down the aisle because that's what was expected of me. But when she asked me to give a speech at the reception, I didn't know what to say. I stood there in front of all the guests, trying to tell stories about my daughter, and I realized I didn't have any stories. I didn't know her. Not really. I spoke about how proud I was of her, about how smart and strong and successful she was. But they were empty words, generalities, the kind of things any father might say about any daughter. When I sat down, I watched her father-in-law give his speech. He told specific stories, real moments, anecdotes that made everyone laugh. And I realized that this man, who had only known Valentina for 3 years, knew her better than I did. Valentina had 2 children, my grandson Matteo in 2011, my granddaughter Sophia in 2013. I saw them occasionally, on birthdays, at Christmas, but it was awkward. They didn't know me. I was the rich grandfather who showed up with expensive gifts but didn't know their favorite colors or what they liked to do. I tried to reach out to Valentina after her children were born. I thought maybe motherhood would give us something in common. But every time I called her, the conversations were short and forced. Every time I invited her out, she had an excuse, and I couldn't blame her. I'd been gone for 23 years. I couldn't expect her to forgive me just because I had the time now. I sold the company in 2017. I retired completely. I was 69 years old and had more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes, and absolutely nothing to do with my time. I tried to travel. I went to Europe, to Asia, to South America, but traveling alone is depressing. You see all these couples, these families laughing together, making memories. And you're there, eating alone in expensive restaurants, taking pictures that no one will ever see. I tried to make new friends. I joined a golf club, but all the men there had wives, children who visited them, grandchildren who adored them. And there I was, the rich, lonely man no one really wanted to get to know beyond superficial conversations. 2 years ago, I had a heart attack, a small one, the doctor said, a warning. I was at home when it happened. I managed to call emergency services. They took me to the hospital. I spent 3 days there. Patricia came to visit me, not because she still loved me, but because despite everything, she still cared. Valentina came too, out of obligation, I suppose. She stayed for 20 minutes. She asked how I was. We talked about the weather, then she left. Lying in that hospital bed, I thought a lot about death, not with fear, more with curiosity. I wondered who would come to my funeral. Probably many business associates. Maybe some former employees, Patricia out of respect, Valentina out of obligation. But who would truly cry? Who would feel that the world was a little emptier without me? I couldn't think of anyone. When I left the hospital, I tried to make real changes. I called Valentina. I told her I wanted to spend more time with her and the children. She was polite but distant. She said she was very busy, but that we'd see. We'd see never came. I tried to explain, to tell her I was sorry, that I'd been a bad father, that if I could turn back time, I would do everything differently. She listened. She nodded. And then she said something that broke me. Dad, I appreciate the apology, but some things can't be fixed with words. I spent my childhood waiting for you to see me, waiting for you to choose me over your job, and you never did. And now I'm an adult. I have my own life. I don't need you the way I needed you when I was 7. He was right, completely right. I'm 76 years old now. I live alone in this enormous house. I have money I don't need. I have accomplishments no one remembers. I appeared in magazines that were recycled years ago. I built a company that someone else is running now, and I am completely, absolutely alone. Some mornings I wake up and forget that there's no one waiting for me. I forget that there's no one to share my coffee with. I forget that I can go days without speaking to another human being. Young people look at me and probably think I have it all figured out. They see the house, the money, they think I've made it. but they don't know that I cry alone at night, that I would give every penny I own to be able to go back and be the father Valentina needed, that I would trade all my professional achievements for a real relationship with my daughter. Here's what no one tells you when you're young and ambitious. Professional success is empty if you have no one to share it with. Money doesn't buy back lost time. Achievements don't embrace you at night. Recognition doesn't call you just to ask how you are. I spent 50 years chasing success, and I achieved it. I built a $200 million company, but in the process I lost my wife, I lost my daughter, I lost any chance of having a real relationship with my grandchildren. And now I'm sitting here, an old man in an empty house, realizing I won the wrong game. I see young men today doing exactly what I did. Working 80 hours a week, missing birthdays, missing recitals, missing family meals. And they all say the same thing I used to say: it's only temporary, only until I get this promotion, only until I close this deal, only until I reach this level, then I'll have time. But that time never comes, because there's always another promotion, another deal, another level. The finish line keeps moving, and meanwhile, your children grow up. Your wife gets used to your absence. And one day, you wake up and realize you're a stranger in your own family. Don't make my mistake. Don't sacrifice your family for your career. Don't convince yourself you're doing this for them. Your children don't need a bigger house. They need their father. Your wife doesn't need expensive jewelry. She needs her partner. Time is the one thing you can't get back. You can't earn more time. You can't buy more time. Once it's gone forever. And all the apologies in the world won't bring back the school plays you missed, the games you didn't see, the conversations you didn't have. I had all the answers when I was young. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was building a future. I was making sure my family would never go through what I went through as a child. I was accomplishing something. But now, sitting here at 76, I realize I knew nothing. I confused providing with loving. I confused giving things with being present. I confused success with happiness, and now it's too late to fix it. Valentina has her own life, her own children, her own problems. She doesn't need me. And honestly, I'm not sure she wants me in her life beyond the obligatory holiday visits. That's what's killing me. Not that I'm alone, but that I deserve to be alone. This is the direct consequence of 50 years of selfish choices, of putting my ego and ambition above the people I loved. If I could talk to my 30-year-old self, I'd say, stop, put down your phone, cancel the meeting, go to the recital, go to the game, have dinner with your family. Listen when your daughter tells you about her day. Look at your wife the way you looked at her when you first met, because these moments aren't coming back, and one day you'll be old and alone, desperately wishing you could relive them. If this resonates with you, if you see yourself in my story, share it. Share it with that friend who's working late again, with that parent who's missing another family dinner, with someone who's making the same mistakes I made. And leave me a comment. Tell me what you're going to do differently, what meeting you're going to cancel, what event for your children you're going to prioritize. Because I need to know that my story, with all its pain and regret, can help someone make better choices. Subscribe, because I have more to say. More lessons learned the hard way. More warnings about life-destroying mistakes. I won't be here forever, but while I am, I want to use my experience, my pain, to help others avoid ending up like me, alone, regretful, rich in money, but poor in everything that truly matters. Your family won't wait forever. Your children will grow up. Your wife will get used to your absence. And one day when you finally have time, it will be too late. Don't waste it. Don't make my mistake. Because I can promise you this. No professional achievement, no amount of money, no recognition, none of that will matter when you're old and alone, wishing you could hug your daughter one more time.